question for you, Michelle.
Hmm.
When was the last time that you drafted a statement for a client, sent it to them, and they just said, yes, no legal review, no, let's sit on this, no, actually, can we just say nothing?
Never? I don't think no, okay. It's been a long time. It's been a long time, Karen.
I mean, and I'll say that tells you everything about the communications environment right now. Welcome back to That Solo Life, everybody.
Hey, everybody. Thanks for joining us for this episode of That Solo Life. You know it. You hopefully love it. It's the podcast for PR pros, marketers, communicators who work for themselves. People like me, Michelle Kane with Voice Matters, and my wonderful co-host, Karen Swim of Solo PR Pro. Hi, Karen. So, yeah, it's wild out there, right? So, everybody, this episode, we're getting into a report that, honestly, the moment I started reading it, I had to put it down and kind of have a moment, not because it was bad, but because it had a lot of things that were very on point and kind of made you go, oof.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's USC's, their Center for Public Relations. It's their 2026 Global Communications Report. It's called A Quiet Shift. And we'll link to the full study in our show notes. And they surveyed over 700 PR professionals, over 1,000 members of the general public. And they also conducted some one-on-one interviews with Fortune 500 chief communications officers. So the thing is rich with data.
Yeah, it is. It is. And, we say this all the time. They only talk to the big agencies. Tools are only made for big agencies. Well, that's fine. We find a way. And so we're looking at this report with you, the solo practitioner, in mind, the independent comms person, like Karen and I, who are just trying to serve our clients well in what is currently, well, I guess it's always a complicated environment, but even more so these days. And there is really some good actionable stuff in here that we want you to hear.
Yeah. Yeah. You want to get into
Let's
some of the
get into it.
Okay.
Yeah, man.
So here's the first thing that kind of jumped out, right? You solo PR pro, you professional communicator, you feel it more than your clients do. And that's actually a problem. So this one for me, like Michelle and I, when we first looked at this report, this is something that we had talked about in the green room. It says that this report reveals what it calls a perception gap. And so according to the report, 81% of PR professionals say polarization is extremely high or very high right now, but only 69% of the general public agrees with that.
Yeah. And that's, what's that, 12 points? That's wild. And, that could be the reason why we seem to be more sensitive to things out there. Although I have another theory. It could just be that we're paying attention, and others should too, wherever you land on that. But, it is kind of our job to look out for the so-called landmines and be watchful for our clients. And that's why I think it's showing that professional communicators do approach these sensitive issues with more caution in a more heightened way.
Yeah. For me, it brought up the point that PR people, we're more anxious than the people that we're actually communicating to. And I agree with you, Michelle. That could be for a lot of reasons. Number one, that's part of, our makeup. That's who we are. We're always looking around corners. We do tend to be more sensitive to, shifts in the landscape, whether they're political, environmental, economic. We've taken a lot of information. So we're reviewing a lot of news every day. And so probably more than, I want to say, the average person, because again, it's part of our job to know things. And that can be a hazard to our well-being too. Yeah. So we've had to find ways to protect ourselves. But with more information, I think that that can heighten it. And then the fact that our job is to be aware of those things and take action of them makes us different. But here's where it gets really
Yeah.
tricky. It's, are we advising clients based on the lens of how we feel about it? Or are we exercising the restraint
Mm.
that really kind of meets our audience where they are at?
That's a great point. I mean, the report certainly states that the American public does agree with the PR people. The polarization is having a negative impact. It's just to what extent, right? And I think it is important for us to keep in mind, you know, yes, we may realize, we think it's way up here, but our job is to still meet our audiences where they are while trying to lead them to truth without being manipulative. So there's our goal, our conundrum, our Rubik's cube to solve, and that could contribute to the cautious attitude that we have, or it definitely
Yeah,
speaks to it. And yeah, I think it's just something we need to keep in mind as we work with clients on these
right.
sensitive topics. Yeah.
I agree. I mean, so I think, for me, it's, asking like, is it me or is it them?
Hmm.
Is this my anxiety? Is this the things that I am afraid of because of all that I'm seeing, hearing, reading, taking in? Or is my audience, my client's audience that I'm communicating to, are they here with me? And do I need to dial it back and take a step back and look at it through their lens? And so, I mean, it's a good checkpoint to make sure that we are not unconsciously bringing our own anxiety into the room.
Yeah, good times. Good times.
One more
And
thing for us to have to do, right?
oh, we stressed out over not being stressed out. And, I think it's a natural byproduct of the business because so much of our work is, we're immersed in the online environment. Sometimes there's no avoiding things, even when I'm working on social media for a client, you have to wade in there. Next thing you know, you're like, oh, what? Wait, why'd I come in this room? Oh, wait, it's to do a post and an ad campaign. Focus. But again, I think because we're simmering in the juices, so to speak, whereas the general audience we're trying to reach isn't. And we need to be sensitive, both conscious of that, sensitive to that, and again, just, you know, deal with it in a way that's ultimately most effective.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
love that. And I mean, it's actually an opportunity, right?
Yeah,
I mean,
sure.
this is the solo advantage. We get to reality test the fear before we advise our clients. I just think that we have, as solos, a lot more opportunity and autonomy to work these things out,
Yeah.
without all those other layers that come with working, within a corporation. So, be aware of it and make sure that you're asking yourself those questions at checkpoints before you're delivering strategy. Make sure that you really are taking, this extra layer into account as you're crafting messages for those audiences.
So true. So true. All right. Insight number 2. The floor fell out on corporate social advocacy, and your clients felt it too, which is kind of a bummer. But, they provide some trend data that honestly is just freaking me out a little bit, but I'll be okay. It's been tracking one question since 2023. Do companies have a responsibility to advocate for or support social issues? Whereas some of us as comms people might think that's just what you do when you're a good person or a good entity, not just wanting my money.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And this one isn't very subtle, right?
Mm-mm.
So according to this report, in 2023 and 2024, almost 9 in 10 PR professionals, so 89%, 85% respectively, said companies have this responsibility, but that proportion dropped to just over half in 2025. And this year it sits at about 55%.
I mean, that's crazy. That's more than half. If, it's like a half drop, and these are the people who are supposed to be the most committed to this idea. And it only took 2 years. Of course, thinking back 2023 to 2025, we can all think about all the things that have happened between now and then. And, I'll give the companies the benefit of the doubt. They've had to swiftly switch priorities to deal with the dumpster fires of the day. But
yeah, I mean, I think it's showing up though, right? It's showing up in how people feel about work, how workers are being treated. It plays into a lot of things. And I would say that this lack of responsibility and care plays into everything else that has, happened since then. But the other distressing thing, and I mean, I guess this tracks, if this is your audience, then you're going to play to what your audience really cares about.
Right.
The general public, according to this report, only 42% of the American public shares the belief that corporations should be advocates in 2026. So
awesome.
Less than half of people think it's a big deal. They don't care. And I wonder if that lack of care or not holding companies responsible is it hopelessness?
I think it could be overwhelm. You're worried about paying your bills every month. I would say 99% of us are in that boat, and we're still clinging to some sort of normalcy. So I think it's kind of an innate thing. But here's the kicker. So those of us who are working with clients who are nonprofits, who are, cause-driven entities, now you can point to the dollars and cents of it, of this is how supporting us truly matters, but it doesn't make it any easier now, because the wind has shifted so dramatically. You don't have, that wind at your back, so to speak, that maybe you did just a couple of years ago. And it could just go down to the very, human notion of, oof, I got to make sure I have enough before I hand anything over. And I'm not saying that that's good or that people are good or bad for it. I think it's just human nature.
Yeah. I mean, and there were some generational differences in this data, right? So it was this belief that companies have a responsibility to address social issues, no surprise, is most strongly held by younger PR professionals. So 6 in 10 Gen Z and 7 in 10 millennials say companies have the responsibility.
I bet you Gen X does too. They just don't ask us. But okay, so seriously, what that does mean is if you're serving younger founders, or again, these mission-driven brands, if you can hear my dogs, they're riding as well, or if you're those whose audiences skew younger, that audience still does care deeply. And, that's a good sign. There's, the kids are all right. There's hope for the future. So the shift isn't uniform across every client type. And that matters a whole lot when you're giving counsel.
Yeah, it does. I mean, I love that, this means that for solos and, for other communicators, it's a reminder to be nuanced in your communications and really, understand deeply who is your audience. Because if you're speaking to a generation that cares about these things, then it's important to include those things in your messaging. It's important to be really clear about the mission, the causes, the values, how you serve. But if that's not your audience, it may be less important. So, again, here's where being a solo, we are able to manage lots of different client relationships, lots of different audiences. And I think that gives us a competitive edge because we play in a lot of different fields. And so we understand those nuances and can advise, in-house agencies or larger agencies that we might work alongside of who may not be playing in all of those spaces. So one more, reminder of the breadth and depth of solo PR pros and how we truly can be a help.
Yeah, so true. So true. We have so many superpowers.
Yeah.
All right.
So Michelle, talk to us about
number 3.
Inside. And we'll share some more like in a blog post or something later, but we're going to cover 3 today.
Okay. I feel like Casey Kasem. Number 3. We should have started with 5. Anyway. Number 3. The content that disappeared and what replaced it. Oh, it's like a murder mystery. Only murders in the podcast. This one comes from some exclusive data that the report commissioned. And it is really interesting. They worked with a company called Cometrics.io to analyze social media posts, including LinkedIn posts, from 6,317, so precise, C-suite executives of Fortune 500 companies. And they looked at a 6-month window before and after the November 2024 election.
Wow.
What a choice.
Wow.
Yeah.
And here's
But
what the report said. It said communication didn't change, but the content did.
I am shocked. Gee, I wonder.
Said no solo
Volume
PR
stayed the same. Yeah, right. It's like, I wonder what could happen. Volume stayed the same. Topics shifted dramatically. And honestly, it's safe to say we saw the same behavior in 2020. Right.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah. Now, according to the Cometrics data cited in the report, AI and agents content went up 75%. What a surprise. Cybersecurity was up 29%. Not a bad thing. We all need to be smart about that. And technology ethics were up 27%. Again, not a bad thing, depending if you're into ethics or not. But we did see some other changes in other types of content. Yeah.
I feel like to some degree, if you want to be a contrarian, that means there's opportunity for, these other topics because people are, I think, as of the recording of this podcast, are growing weary of some of those topics. But in contrast, the things that dropped, LGBTQ plus content dropped 77%, greenhouse gases down 50%, and net zero down 44%. Diversity and equality down 13%, and content about apprenticeship programs down 52%.
That DEI number sounds awfully low, but
I bet it's higher. Maybe it was at the time, I bet it's a lot higher.
Yeah. And honestly, LGBTQ plus content dropping, that to me sounds like just self-protection in this crazy world we live in. But the report also included a second analysis, and that one was conducted by Meltwater, and they looked at media coverage of U.S. Fortune 500 companies in top-tier national outlets. And they did this over the course of 2023 to 2025. And they found that, shocking, AI became the dominant corporate theme post-election. Coverage on that went up 98%. It's like suddenly the whole world decided, oh, is this here now? Yes, it is. And at the same time, you saw environmental themes and purpose-led issue coverage decline sharply. So it's like we went, certain things went up and certain things went way down. So it's, I don't know. Are we just a bunch of squirrels looking at the latest shiny?
Yeah, I think we are. I know as communicators, we love, we love a breadth of topics, and we love creativity, and we've had to be locked into really understanding what's really going to get written about as we're pitching, as we're doing thought leadership, and it's really skewed into these areas. And sadly, for the people who work in very specific aspects of communications, they've had challenges in getting their content seen. So, DEI specifically, this report referenced a 2025 study by ABC News that the coverage of DEI has shifted towards backlash, rollback, and litigation stories. So that's, again, there's content, but it's not the content that is positive content. It's about DEI, but in a negative way.
Right. It's not constructive or empowering or anything like that. So even though sadly DEI isn't disappearing, like you say, it's more about the alleged controversy of it and the legalities that have come to the fore, and that brings a completely different communication challenge to comms pros, and it requires a totally different strategic approach. So again, solos, we know how to pivot, we know how to ride the waves. We've got a lot of waves we're riding right now, but
We do. I mean, I think, practically speaking, as communicators, we know this, but you may have clients in these spaces and
yeah,
they're your client. You still need to serve them. And so you still need to address these topics. That doesn't mean that you stop. It means that your framing strategy has to change. And you can't pretend because that doesn't serve your client or their audiences. You just have to really, spend a lot more time at the strategy table and figuring out how to how to deliver your messaging in an environment that is sort of turned against you. I mean, if you work for a company that's working on climate change, technology or issues, or you work for nonprofits that are serving these other communities, or, whatever space your client is, people actually have businesses where this content is germane to who they are. You have to communicate that, but it's all in the framing.
yeah, yeah. And I think adding to that, your voice is going to be your voice no matter what. You have to navigate the circumstances and situations, but you're not going to so-called change your story on,
Yeah.
just because of it. But, and also, again, AI content is demanding a lot of attention. And, it's not a bad thing because we need to learn how to navigate it. It's not going away. So you really need to make sure that your clients are telling a credible AI story if it pertains to their line of business, of course. And, if you're not, you're leaving a lot of opportunity on the table. Because if you aren't talking about it, others certainly are. So if you have any means of expertise in it or surrounding it, you need to be talking about it. It could be as much as tools to help your clients keep their books or, it,
Yeah.
however it applies. So, and again, we'll come back to our pivot. Where's Ross? Solos, we pivot with the best of them. And, clients should be thrilled to have us to help lead the way through this maze we're living in right now. But yep, so those were 3 of the findings. We're going to come back in another episode with more findings. We hope you
Maybe
have.
we'll do this as
Yeah.
a special. I mean, I just
Oh,
thought of this in the moment.
yeah.
So we can
Okay.
do this as a special exclusive YouTube behind the mic, and we'll go over a
Oh,
couple
I
more.
love that.
Yeah.
Love
So
it.
stay tuned for that, and we'll, make sure to let our listeners
Yeah.
know. But I think, Michelle, that
Yeah.
I think that we want to hear from our listeners how this
Yes.
report lands for them.
Yeah.
Definitely, take some time to read it. It does have some interesting insights in there, data backed. And I believe that information is power for us. If we know, then we can use that and we can leverage that in our strategic counsel and how we craft things. And so
Yeah.
I, we cover this annual report. I think we've done this for the past couple of years because it's about our industry.
Yeah.
And so we love to see, what the survey says about how we're doing our work. And we
Yeah.
hope, that it was helpful.
Yeah. Hopefully. And here's one takeaway: look at one client relationship and just check yourself. See whether your anxiety about a certain issue that pertains to them is mostly your anxiety, or is it that, or is it something that their audience should be concerned with? So, and we'd love to hear from you. Hit us up at soloprpro.com or the new website home for our podcast, thatsololife.com. We'd love to hear your feedback, even if you pop it in a Google review. And until next time, thanks for listening to That Solo Life.